Welcome to the CMO Scoop. I'm your host, Lara August. I'm the CEO of Robot Creative. We have worked with thousands of what we call very large small businesses. We write marketing plans and provide marketing leadership to companies on a part-time basis. Those consultants are called fractional CMOs or chief marketing officers. We have a growing network of CMOs that we place with our clients, and each of them brings their own unique background and perspective to the table. So I wanted to take advantage of that. Every month, I have a conversation with one of our CMOs or one of our internal directors, and we cover topics and recurring themes that we see in these businesses that we work with. So today, my guest is Belinda Gudmundsson. She is our creative director here at Robot. And today we are going to be discussing website trends. I'm really excited to talk about it. I recently passed the baton. Well, I guess it's been almost 2 years now to Belinda. I ran the website projects at Robot, or was the creative director. I hardly do the things myself. We have an incredible team that specializes in all the different areas. And when Belinda joined us, I passed the reins to that over to her. And if you look at our website, it's a little crusty right now. I'm not ashamed to admit it. We're getting ready to redo ours. And we recently did a whole lot of research, the entire creative team, on website trends. So Belinda and I thought it would be the perfect time to have a conversation about it, what we see going on with the small businesses that we work with, what we see going on as broader trends, just to help inform and educate. And it looks like there's a lot of interest in this topic. So glad to see you all here today. And Belinda, thank you for joining us. So we are seeing a lot of changes. Do you want to just paint a picture of the landscape and what we're seeing going on?
Yeah, it is fascinating. And as with technology, as with anything nowadays, things are moving so fast that it seems like there's a new platform being put up on a daily basis. People are using, obviously, the big thing is AI. How are we utilizing AI both in design and creative and website development and all of those things? And that's moving at just a rapid pace right now. It's insane. We're seeing people who are utilizing drag and drop features. So there are website builders now where it is fairly easy to pull things in. You drag and drop, you bring your imagery in, you can add your text. So they're very intuitive website builders that people are using. A lot of sites, depending, of course. The first key to all of it is who are you as a business? How do you represent your brand? What do you want to look like? But then also, who are you speaking to? Who's your audience? Who's consuming that? Who's going to click on and go to your website? Because you want to be cognizant of how they are perceiving your website from an external perspective. Do you have young people who are consuming whatever that product is, or is it an older audience and they're used to seeing things stylized in a certain way? So you have to take all of those things into consideration when you put together a website. There's a lot of websites now that the gaming industry has influenced how things look on a large scale. So there are a lot of websites now that have this crazy functionality to them that look almost like you're in a video game, and your cursor. It's crazy to look at how things have changed from the old days. I'm gonna say the old days, the old school website.
We've been doing it a minute. I think it's okay. We can say old days.
A box with information and a box with information and a picture, and all of that is really, really different. And we're looking at, ChatGPT right now reaches over 800 million weekly views. It's crazy how quickly AI has taken over, and we have to look at how that affects search. How are people looking for things on websites? So you have to be cognizant of that when you put your website together, because you program it a little differently. The content is a little different. AI searches for different things than a human might search for them. So we have to think about all of that when you put together a website. And it just makes it, you have to research a lot, and it makes it more challenging from a strategy perspective to make sure that you're doing the right thing for any particular given product and or client.
I feel like we're in this really strange period where you have AI that's advancing all of the software tools, all of the technologies at this really rapid rate. It's making all kinds of things available that weren't available before. And, with varying degrees of ease of use. Some of it's still really hard to use and some of it isn't great yet. But so you have this explosion of possibilities. And at the same time, if you're running a business and search is important to you, we're not just using AI to build the websites where all the look and feel and programming is changing. It's also the search factor. Our world has blown up when it comes to search. And we did a whole episode last month with our marketing director and my business partner, Lana Harris, on AI search specifically and how that's affecting the search world. So you can go to our YouTube channel and watch that if you want to see how AI and search tie into website design. But yeah, crazy times, so many different things going on, so many adjustments that we as business owners have to make. And when I look at our clients, a website is one of the most expensive things that they will invest in for their marketing for a very large small business. It's definitely up there, advertising and trying to reach new clients is important. Branding is very important and usually a big ticket item. Websites are right up there. When you have to redesign a whole new website and, make sure that the SEO is tied in, that it's promoted, that all the marketing channels and tracking and everything is cohesive, it's usually quite the undertaking. So while we're in these crazy times, I would recommend to a lot of small businesses to consider being the version 2, go with 2.0. Don't try to run with 1.0 unless you have such a small site that you can just change it all the time. Usually these decisions can be costly and you don't want to have to redo your site again in a couple of years. So we want to break this down for you. We want to talk about what we're seeing happening with platforms, what we're seeing happening with design, what we're seeing happening with technology. So we're going to kind of dig into each of those in turn. So Belinda, if we could just start with platforms, the first decision with a website is really all about the platform. What platform, is going to be right for your business is going to really depend. And so I want to turn it over to you, Belinda, to talk about what we're seeing the most of with these large small businesses that we work with. And when I say large small businesses, these are businesses that are between $5 and $50 million in revenue. So they have made it, they are over significant hurdles. Some of you joining us might be more in startup mode. You may be larger than that, but we tend to see smaller businesses join the podcast. And then, some of the customers and clients and prospects that we work with that are at that higher end range. But if you could let us know, Belinda, what we're actually seeing, what's working and what people are using.
Right. So we kind of have a standard tool chest that we go to for that has been tried and tested. You talk about a 2.0 version, and I'll joke with clients often. I've been saying this for years, but it's always great to be on the cutting edge, but not the bleeding edge. So you start too soon, and you're the person who unfortunately is on the bleeding edge of the technology and have to deal with all of the things that go wrong when you first start it. So we try to stay with some tried and true platforms that we use, but there are so many out there. And just as I said, they're growing by day. There are platforms for gaming. There are platforms for apps. There are platforms for just drag and drop, simple business, simple products. There are e-commerce platforms that we use, that we utilize. A lot of it, when you think about what you want to pick, it goes back to who's going to be doing it? Who's going to be running your website? Who's going to be updating your website? Who's going to be designing and or programming your website? If you're hiring a professional firm like us or somebody else, then those choices may be broader for you. If you plan on doing a DIY, then you're going to want a really simple, probably, unless you're a programmer, you're going to want a simple drag and drop type of thing. We love WordPress as the industry standard for building. It has tons of versatility. It has hundreds and hundreds of plugins, probably more, that you can choose from. to build a site, and it allows you creativity. It allows you to maneuver and add in design elements that other sites might not. If you're using like a drag and drop, something that's really easy to build, a platform like Squarespace, you are very limited by what you're doing. The builder doesn't allow you to do a lot of creativity in there. You can get creative within the containers, within the elements, but you can't really build your own site. So depending on what type of business you are and what you're trying to do, you want to think about what they are. And then of course, if you're looking at e-commerce, then you want to look at a Shopify or a WooCommerce, are very, very common sites that we use. If you're actually selling your product, you want something that's going to interface. You want to make sure that it's simple and easy. You want to make sure that it has inventory management. You want to make sure that you can actually sell your product and there's functionality there on the back end. So those are all sites that we recommend. There are other cool sites that you see out there. There's, the Framers of the world and all of that. But you want to pretty much, if you are starting out and you're really just building a site and starting new, you want to look at something that is a tried and true platform that is going to help you. And if you want to get really crazy and do something, then hire somebody who's, we have a great development team here. There's tons of amazing web developers out there. Hire somebody who can do the code on the back end and make it look really cool. So
yeah, and I think what I love about the recommendation that you're making is when you think about all of the challenges in running a small business, just finding the people to do the work is half of the challenge, right? So finding a reliable firm, finding reliable employees. And so I think this is one of the main reasons that we recommend some of the more tried and true and established platforms. It's just that you can find a million people that have worked with WordPress, a million people that have worked with Shopify. There's whole, marketplaces with experts that you can go to if you need help and assistance in those platforms. And so while there are some shiny red balls out there and bells and whistles, like neat new things going on, one of the considerations that we always have is, how frequently you're going to have to update the website, who's going to update it, can you find people to update this type of site? So when we're talking small business or large small business, those are some of the most standard platforms, and we do swear by them. They've been around forever. They're investing loads in AI, so all of those features are starting to be baked into those platforms. That doesn't mean that during all of the chaos that we have going on in the world right now with AI and new platforms being developed, that doesn't mean that we won't see new technologies emerge. I think we can expect to see new platforms and new technologies that emerge. I think we're going to see even more industry-specific technologies, where there's lots of great industry-specific platforms too, and like far too many for us to rattle off here. But we do have clients in niche industries or broad industries that have software that's developed specifically for them, and features, and really it gets into the deeper technology that's built into it that you can't compete on price. I mean, there's a reason trade organizations and car dealerships and certain types of companies use the platforms that they do. Because it would be cost prohibitive to try to build that technology, in-house. So it makes sense. And I think as AI evolves, we're going to see even more of that. And I would expect that we will also see some new technologies, 10 years from now, there's going to be competitors to WordPress, probably 5 years from now, to WordPress, to Shopify, and to Squarespace, some of those major platforms that have held the whole small business world kind of hostage in a good way. Like, they've offered great tools and resources. There will be others. So the question is, I still feel like it's a little too early to be jumping onto any of those, but we can expect to see them. And so just staying on top of what's going on in your industry would probably be some of the first places that I would look to see exciting things happening. So platform, you have to figure out what you're going to base it all on, but then there's huge technology shifts when we get into the more deep functionality items and stuff like that. So Belinda, talk about what some of the major technology changes are that are happening.
Yeah, there's probably too many to cover in an hour-long right. podcast, but do your research, a lot of research. No, I think I mean, the no-brainer to it all is AI, AI, AI. You have to look at how it's being utilized. It's everywhere. The way that we like using it, the way that it has some good uses from a website development perspective is increasing the productivity on things. It can make things go much faster, much more methodical than a human sometimes doing it. However, I always say the humans have to feed it. The prompts have to be right. You have to put in the right information in order to do that. It can optimize layouts on things that you would otherwise take a long time doing. We utilize that a lot for it. It can help create code. Our developers are looking at it and saying, I want to do this. Give me an example. They usually have to go back in and they'll have to redo and tweak some things, but it's a good starting place. The AI will give you a good starting place for the code. It will give you really good thought starters for content. So where you'd have to do big brainstorming sessions or have a copywriter sit for, hours trying to come up with the best headlines for your website, you can get a whole list of things that come out and then you can filter through them or change them and look at them. They give you really good thought starters to start with. We use them a lot for placeholder imagery. We don't use them for actual imagery. You can't trademark any of the imagery that comes out, but we use it for placeholder imagery if we're building a site and say we're going out and doing a video or a photography shoot at a particular location. We'll say, put this in this position so that you can get a comp shot there, so you can put it into the wireframes and you can look at what it looks like. So you've got a good shot list and a good idea of what you're going after when you go out on location.
We used to have to Photoshop for hours or just put like a written description in there, right? So it's so awesome, just even within like Adobe to just be able to say put a bird on top of a bag and, make the background.
Take this person, put it on this background and this is what it looks like. And you just put it together and it doesn't always look, great. I mean, sometimes people have 4 hands, but it's a really good starting place. So the other thing from a technology perspective, and I know that you and Lana touched on this some, but when you're building a website, you really have to think about like the chatbot stuff and all the voice navigation, all of those things. So what smart forms do, you have to think about how it's going to be consumed and what people are doing nowadays to find it. And so the chatbots are, as we said, the computers do things, they perform in a completely different way than humans perform. So that technology has affected the way that you put things together. It affects keywords, it affects phrases that you use, it affects its tags that you use on photography. So you have to think about that when you're putting the site together. And then there's, from a technology perspective and builders and all of that, the equipment itself, that's like a whole technical. We have an amazing development team and technology team that put all of that together. But thinking about the big strategy of where that is, and then knowing that you have dozens of options at your fingertips to be able to choose what you need to do with those sites. It's a daunting thing, but it's a good thing because we do have a lot of options now that we didn't have even 5 years ago.
Absolutely. People ask us all the time, like as an agency, how much are we using AI and how much are we using some of these new tools? And we're finding it most useful for production. Things that used to be tedious or that's where we're starting, right? Is like anything that's baked into a tool already and is a button that's right there, like we're training up on and learning how to use and taking advantage of because it's right there in front of you and somebody else has already made that investment. And then we're looking at things that's kind of like our business secret sauce, our processes, our things that we do. How can we take the tedium out of that and use AI? And so, of course, in the web development world, it's one of the most threatened professions, I think, is developers in general, because the software can be written by the AI and because it can find its own mistakes and everything. But there always has to be that human element of understanding what the project is and using the AI and reviewing it, because it still does hallucinate, it still does drift, it gets stuck. And so, I think that we're not to a point where AI is just generating websites for us, right? Like we're not quite there. But what is cool is that if you take a basic website that's just kind of like a brochure or marketing website, that might be a really basic Squarespace without any of the e-commerce or forms or functionality turned on, or it might be a really basic WordPress site that's just kind of delivering information. We're talking about, with technology changes, it's usually in the form of plugins or add-ons or other features or functionality that you need. And that's where we're seeing, from a user's perspective, those tools are starting to use AI and to bake it into the systems. And so really, it's all just stuff that you can take advantage of, that you can look at, like, what would you like your site to do, not just say. And those tools are going to be changing really rapidly. So where I would be more cautious on the platform, I would say the tools, which you can pop in and out pretty easily. If you have like a chat feature on your website, a customer service tool or a form tool, like those are relatively easy to swap in and out quickly. And so I would say those are places where you might want to have more change and you might want to update your technology more rapidly as things evolve over the next few years. So I think next we wanted to touch on design. So technology often drives design trends. And so can you talk to us about some of the design trends that you're seeing? And I have some pages bookmarked that I'm happy to pull up if you want to look at any of them.
Yeah, I saw Tangela raise her hand, and I wasn't sure if that was on purpose. So.
I do. Before you hop onto design, because this is a platform-related question, and so I want to kind of keep it in the same space. But I did have a question about, do you have any recommendations on how to choose between an industry-based platform versus some of the common platforms like WordPress and Squarespace?
An industry-based platform, it'd be more helpful to know what platform you're talking about, because there's so many.
There are so many. Usually it's functionality though, right? So it's not usually like the layouts or the platform itself. Those are usually a little bit restrictive and templated and annoying, to be quite honest. It's usually like what the site does. So whether that's e-commerce or catalog features or CRM features that are built in. So again, without knowing exactly what industry, sometimes those tools are so developed that, again, it would just be cost prohibitive to try to go and build that on your own in WordPress or something. So, those are some of the major things I would look at. Moving on to design. So Belinda, do you want me to pull up some of these sample sites? I can kind of flip through them as we talk.
We could do that. That'd be great. I did a lot of research. We do a lot of research with clients anyway. Whenever we're looking at a new site, we look at the industry, we look at who the customer is. We do a lot of research. We do a lot of consumer behavior research on them. So a lot of what we're seeing nowadays, it's interesting because it's kind of changed. It's very retro. We've got this kind of Y2K feel going on with a lot of colors and large, really bold headlines and skimmable text and all of that. We still, we still don't want the site to not have the SEO value, the GEO value. We still want that in there. But a lot of people are going kind of that more artistic style. There's a lot of bright colors. There's a lot of usage of that. There's a lot of big headlines that people are doing. There's a lot of interesting text where you've got here, you've got this newsletter text box here. It's very different. And of course this is Spotify. So you're looking at your audience and you're thinking about who your audience is and doing that. But there's a lot of that going on where you've got animation going, a lot of video, which has been around for a while. But think about we're talking about it in kind of like a maximalism's hyper experiential bold colors. If you pull up the Headspace one, Laura, that's where you can see sort of that Y2K, the inspired sort of design. This is probably this is the bright colors. Everybody is kind of using palettes now. It was taboo where you'd go away from whatever your brand style guide was and usually have your primary color, and then you'd have a secondary and maybe a tertiary color. Well, people are just throwing caution to the wind now and saying I want to add 2 or 3 more other colors, and I want it to be bright and lots of movement on it. And it's great. It's great. you worry that, in the end, people's sites are going to start all looking the same if everybody's using the entire color palette. But I think that there's a way to do that and make it still stick to your brand palette, what it is. The other thing is this has a really good example of it, and so does the seltzer. Is that you've got the colors in there, but you're leaving some of the white space in there. So it's skimmable, but you're leaving that white space, that background. So it's not all, you've got one container on top of another where you don't have any of that. That being said, a lot of everything's being built nowadays with like dark mode. So you think about dark mode, you've got white space here, which is a little contradictory, but it's really not. A lot of things are being considered in dark mode because, first of all, it uses less battery. You look at the less eye strain on there. And of course, you have to think about your audience. If you're selling scooters to older people, you definitely don't want to think about dark mode. But if you're selling something like this, or the next one that you would bring up, the seltzer one, the City Seltzer, which is just a really cool site. You've got big, bold, not a whole lot going on. It's like, here's what it is. And here's a little tiny descriptor on it. I don't have walls of text on there. There's not a lot of that. And there's a lot of space around it. So it gives it this really kind of interesting look and feel to it. It's this very well done. I'm bring up sites that we think are really good. The other thing that is from a design perspective that you want to look at nowadays is the navigation. So people are doing a lot of really cool things with navigation. Like there's just a lot of unique designs. Look at like this whole experience. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier with like gamer sites and things that look like gaming. So you've got this whole experience going through this website that you're looking at. Things are popping up everywhere. It really is sort of like a video game when you look at how you're navigating through it. The topics are different. The menus are really different. So you've got sort of a mega menu, but then you've got like these little mini menus that come up and pop up within each of them. So the navigation itself brings you to where these places are. And then you've got this whole tour on there with the videos and all the motion and the movement. It really does kind of harken to almost a video game where you've got a lot. It's an experiential experience on the website to keep people active and to keep people moving through it. People still like words, and words are important, but what you'll see in there, you want to say as much as you can with as few words as you possibly can to keep people active and keep people engaged in what they're doing. And in contrast to some of these bright colors, there's also there's a trend in some areas. I see this a lot, sort of cosmetic and everything, which is not necessarily out of the ordinary, but there's also sort of a naturalism and a historical, like a look back to historical items where you're taking, say it's an old picture, an old statue of David, and you're pixelating it and making it look like it's computer generated in a sense that it's this real natural environmental field.
Do we have an example of one of those, Belinda?
I'm not I think try the active hop one. That's not really, but this has got that really interesting navigation to it. Do the Italia, so the Italy, I love looking at tour sites because I like seeing how cities and towns and countries promote themselves from a marketing perspective. They have, millions of people looking at their sites all the time. This kind of, see where you've got the Colosseum in the background and this really bold print there, but then you've got this person, but it's not really a person, it's a caricature, but it looks almost like it would be a portrait that would be hanging.
Like an AI influencer or something.
Right. Yeah. And so there's this juxtaposition of this old and new feel to it. So they're making the new try to look like the old in that style, but modernize it. And I think that's a really kind of cool design convention. And it's really interesting. It would be interesting to play with that for the right client and for the right site, because I think it could be cool. Once again, you've got tons of white space here. Lots of interesting colors going on. It's just cool. That top part was the thing that I was referring to, so you can kind of see where it brings it together. But those are like the main things. And of course, you always want to have video in there. You always want to have movement. You want to have motion, keeping people engaged, making it stories, telling stories. We're also seeing where we had for a time there, and we've done this with several clients purposefully. You had for a time where people were taking every bit of information and they were building a separate page for SEO. You've got, you break it all down. Well, now, because of mobile consumption and because of the way people are consuming their websites, there's the long scrolling. So they're taking away the multiple pages and putting the content on single pages where you're going to scroll more, but you've got all that content there and you're not having to flip from page to page. So,
yeah, I mean, having done this for so long, it's like sites started out smaller, they became huge, like very, very bulky with SEO. And for SEO and even for the AI search, you really do still need to have that content, but you kind of hide it. Not hidden in the sense that like old school SEO tactics where you would make it white on white or something, but where it needs to be really easy to navigate, and it needs to be in kind of like a post type or used as data that's easy to sort and filter and to use accordions to shrink up or, kind of hide and reveal so that the main pages of the site are still really easy to navigate. And I think that, I've seen so many different phases, like the mobile first phase really brought out those longer scrolling pages and like simpler blocks of information. But right about that same time, all the movement technologies that we were using became obsolete because they didn't work on mobile phones. They didn't work with mobile like SEO very well. So now HTML has evolved to the point where we can layer in all of these animations. We can create layers. First of all, that was a big deal. We can add in animations and movement and rich textures and things that didn't exist. So I love some of the examples that you pulled up for that reason, because they show this kind of whole new world opening up in terms of what's possible with the navigation, what's possible with layering. It's experimentation that we haven't seen like that in a really long time. I mean, I would say like in the past year or two, we've started to see this creativity come back into it that was kind of gone. Everybody nuked their sites and made them really simple to make them mobile first. And now it's like, finally, we have the creativity coming back. So I think some of those examples are really great. Do you have any other design points that you want to bring up or talk about? I mean, I think I want to reinforce that you mentioned like designing for dark mode and that being for specific audiences. That's not appropriate for everyone.
It's not appropriate. And that is the thing to understand, is that we talk about having the knowledge, and we do have the knowledge, but part of what we do as an organization, and everybody should, is that you have to do a ton of research on your own. You really do. And there's going to be unique scenarios for all kinds of different businesses. As I said in the very beginning, I think it's so important. We're always a strategy first organization, and I love that about this company. It's one of the reasons that I joined it. Is you have to look at it from a strategic perspective of what is going to make the most sense. What is your product? Who is your audience, and how can you best represent that product and or service organization to the larger portion of who you're trying to target? And the answers to those questions are going to answer so much about how you design a website, what kind of imagery you have in your website, what kind of content from a copy perspective you have in your website, how much video do you have, how animated is it, how much motion do you have in there, to where if you're targeting specific demographics, specific audiences, you may want to keep it simple. So there's not like an easy one answer question, and there are so many design choices that you can make based on all of those things, that there's not like an easy button for you to say, this will work no matter what. I mean, if you want to just get information out there, put a couple pictures up there, put your copy up there and all of that, if you want to just get information. But if you really want it to stand out and to represent you and to function well and to be different, be interesting, then you've got to do all that ahead of time.
Yeah, this is a website is such a huge reflection of a brand. because we have the imagery, we have the words, we have the technology, we have, the different forms of marketing that can tie into it or that you're trying to accomplish with the website. It could serve different businesses at different points in the customer journey, just depending on how you're using your website. Is it for lead generation, or are you directing people to it? Is it expected to do the lead generation through SEO or something like that? Or are you directing people to it maybe from the real world, and then people go to the website to take the next step or to learn more? Is it transactional in the form of e-commerce? All of those things lead to very different decision making. And so I do think I just love the strategy also, and really knowing all of the different things that go into it, making sure that you're doing your research on your audience, on the competition, and deeply understanding them. And analytics can help with that a little bit. If you feel that you have the right audience coming to your website, you can use analytics to evaluate who's coming, which types of devices they're using. So there's a lot that you can learn from it. And you can see which of those groups, you can divide them into cohorts and start to understand what behaviors group with different device types and stuff like that. A lot of times that's beyond most small businesses. They're usually content to know, are they on a desktop or are they on mobile devices? Are they on Androids? Which browsers are they using? Is it Chrome or is it Safari or whatever? And I think that's the place to start, to see who's currently using your site before you redesign it. Mm-hmm. But that's most useful if you know you have the right users on your site. If they're not necessarily the right users, then that data could actually lead you astray, right? Mm-hmm. You might be looking at data that relates to an audience that you're not really trying to reach. And then that's not helpful. So worth looking at, but filter it and try to understand, are they the right audience? And definitely just do the research on who your audience is and what might appeal to them and what types of tools and devices they're using as well. And I saw Tangela, sorry, you popped in and then went off. Do you have a question?
That's okay, sure. Then I have a couple of questions, but you guys were going so well. I was like,
No, go ahead. Bring it on.
All right. So the first question is about design. And the audience member wants to know, when do web elements move from being experience focused and eye-catching to overwhelming from a UX standpoint?
I mean, the first thing you're going to look at is your load time. I mean, that's the thing that you look at most when you're designing something, is if it takes 10 seconds to load something because it's a really cool element, you don't want to do it. 3 seconds is usually the industry standards. If it takes longer than 3 seconds, you probably don't want to do that on your site. So that would be the first thing. And along with the overload, is there so much information that you're not getting a hierarchy or clarity of the information you're trying to share with people? So if there's so much going on that people don't even know where to focus or don't know what your story is, then that's too much. That's more than you should have in there. And it depends on, what you have a website for. And as we talked about the demographic, if you've got a bunch of, early 20 somethings in there, they're used to seeing stuff all over a screen and they might consume it a little differently, but you always want to be careful of the overload from the UX perspective and the visual perspective of whoever the audience is. Those would be my main things. I don't know, Laura, if you have other things that you think.
I think you summed that up perfectly. What my 9-year-old can handle in terms of movement and speed and sound and changing, is vastly different from what a lot of our B2B clients, going after a professional audience, what their audience could handle, right? So know your audience, and then you can test, right? You can use analytics to set different targets and goals to understand the usability. If you feel like you need to be adding that flavor and that movement and more zing to your site, you can do it and then watch and see what happens, right? Does that increase engagement or does that decrease it? Are you losing people? So always, what's great about anything online is that it's pretty much all measurable. Love that about it. It's not like analytics is super fun or easy to use. So, and there are other more advanced tools than that. But again, we rarely see those used in small businesses. So I would just say, go for the animation, use it cautiously, get feedback on it. And if you can go deep into the analytics, I would do that to understand it.
Awesome. Thank you for that. We've got one more question. And this one is regarding ads and asking for some best practices on applying ads to websites so that they're not intrusive. So when you're applying an ad, at which touch point do you do it? Do you do it on the initial landing page, on the second or third click? Give us some best practices about that.
I guess my first question would be ads for yourself within your website, or is it
Google
ads
ads?
for someone else?
Yeah.
Because that makes a difference. So if you're advertising for yourself within your website, that's the content of it. So I'm going to guess that they're talking about having advertisement for some subsidiary or trying to monetize their website. Maybe it's an e-commerce site and they're trying to monetize it with other people's ads. I would say, I mean, this is probably a crazy answer, but where are you making the most money? Are you going to get the most money out of the ad? If the ad gets more clicks, is that going to be more revenue for you? Or are you going to get more revenue out of selling your own product? So that's going to decide placement and location and how you position that. So those are just things that you have to question when you go into it. If you're accepting advertising on your website, what the revenue share is.
Yep. Totally agree. It's funny to think like, well, where are you making the most money? But truly, if those ads are making the most money, you want to maximize that for sure. Yep. Okay, great. So if we're good on questions right now, again, please, love that you guys are engaging with questions. Continue to put those in the chat. So let's move on a little bit though from design. Let's talk about content. So what is changing in the world of content?
Okay, so I don't know if I would say changing, but yes, but some trends that from a website perspective. Obviously, video has been around for a long time. People are using video. There's a little bit of a change dynamic. And I think that this is probably TikTok driven in the sense of how everybody's on TikTok and everybody's doing their selfie shots and everybody's the star. And that's great. And I think that that's translating to a lot of website. The need for that formal video where you have a crew go out and you shoot a whole bunch of stuff and you'd have to go back and edit it and it was beautiful and it had graphics on it. That trend is sort of going away a little bit. It's sort of like keep it fresh, keep it interesting, change it up, make sure that your content is relevant for what's going on now. And people like that. Websites like it, analytics like it when you change your content, but also people who are consuming it like it. So short and sweet can be good. Not that you want kind of crappy looking video. You don't want it to be the quality to be bad, but it doesn't have to, when you think about it, it doesn't have to be that formalized video. The other thing, which we went over a little bit in the design area, is that, short and sweet, it's the most that you can say with the fewest words. You can tag things, you can figure out a way to get the SEO value on all of it. But people are in a hurry. People have a lot of things going on. People are consuming media and content everywhere that they go. So they want to be able to make it skimmable. They want to be able to look at it. They want to get to the point and get to the point quickly. So the better you can do that, the days of like long paragraphs are probably not here right now. They may come back again. And then the other thing is the authenticity in the voice, whether it be in video or whether it be in writing. Make sure that the way that you are presenting yourself, the story that you're telling is an authentic story for the brand that you are. Don't try to be something you're not. People will see right through it. And
that goes for the imagery too, right? Like stock art. Like there used to be just stock art imagery running rampant on websites to fill space. And that is definitely a problem at this point in time. They are going to want to see real people, real connections, and authentic imagery. And obviously that's video has made so much of that possible too. So if anybody has any questions in terms of content, fewer words, more video, YouTube kind of changed all of that, right? So that's what's being consumed. And then along with that, a lot of voice, natural language kinds of questions and responses. Like, this is not the way we were taught to write when we were in school. I'm 51 years old, right? So we were taught a much more structured, formal writing style. And now, with so many people doing voice chats and voice searches and voice AI requests, we saw a wave of this with all of the voice assistants, like the Google Homes and Alexa and things like that. And so we saw a wave of it then, but even more so now with AI. You want to use kind of natural language in a way that's less formal. We do have clients that have technical things that they're trying to communicate. Usually that's when you get a little bit deeper into a site and when you're talking to a technical audience. And there are still readers in this world. Thankfully, like, I'm a reader. So, and I'm an older person. So there you go. My kids are like, whatever, Mom, we need video. I think that really understanding who you're trying to talk to and how they prefer to consume this type of information, whether they want it to be long or short. It seems so simple to just say, like, make sure you know your audience and give it to them in the format that they want it. But we find that that thought process is sometimes disregarded. And it's like, oh, we should do video, or we need it to be technical, or without really thinking about, but who's on the receiving end and what do they want, and put it into the context and the format that they're looking for. I just think is so important. Okay, so all of this, of course, ties into digital marketing. A website doesn't do much just sitting out there on its own without some kind of a digital marketing plan and directing people to it. So tell us, how are you seeing the marketing plans evolve?
Well, I think that there's multi-layer right now that we're looking at, but when it comes to finding websites, which is the most important thing. So there's all kinds of marketing that you can do. You can run ads. You can send out emails to your client database, your list. You can run traditional advertising. You can run ads on streaming. All of those things can create brand awareness and drive traffic to your website if that's where you want to drive your traffic. But when we look at the whole AI, we talked about earlier, the AI becoming so significant in technology and advertising and website development, you can't only think about how your site is built and what you're doing with your site from an SEO perspective anymore. We talked a little bit about this, but you've got the GEO, where it's generative engine optimization. And then you've got, AEO for the AI optimization that you have to think about, and people using their chatbots, that they're searching things. And so it used to be the most important thing was, where you showed up on the search. So can I include enough keywords? Can I include enough in there so that I'm going to show up really, really high on the searches? And now it's like, I'm not as focused on showing up in the search. I'm focused up on being the content of the search. I want AI to say this person or this product or this thing showed up as in, so you want to be mentioned. You want to actually have that show up when somebody does some kind of AI search and they're asking for your particular industry or your particular place. So the way that you program a computer or a website is a little bit different, and you have to consider all of those things from a marketing perspective when you put a website together or update a website, because it's really important that you have that. Video, use of video for like multi-purpose. So you're teasing the content for the website with some of the content in there in your emails and all of that. That's really engaging, and it works really, really well. The other thing from a marketing perspective is you want to make sure that, and this sort of ties in here, but when people get to your site, that what they're seeing on your site is what you shared with them. It's like you're not doing an ad or doing something completely separate, and then they're going to end up on your site and you look nothing like what they just either clicked on or the video that they just saw that got them to where you are. So you want to make sure there's some kind of a connection and a synergy between those two things, because people don't like it. Like they feel like, you're a fraud when you say you're one thing and then they show up on your site and you're completely different. So that's pretty important from a marketing perspective nowadays. And personalizing it for your audience. You may have a product that spans the breadth of 30 years of a possible demographic, but the way that Laura and I are going to consume that or look for that might be completely different from her children. The product might still be valid, but they are not going to get there on the same path that either one of
Definitely
us
not.
get there. So
we are not clicking on the same things. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I love it. So yeah, I definitely think that when you talk about like the broader picture of like the marketing plans and how those are evolving, if your website, if SEO and search were really important to your website, I think you need to think about what type of search that was. Were you thought leaders or subject matter experts that were directing people into the site to learn more and to go deeper? Those would be good candidates as businesses to try to capture that AI search where you become the thought leaders that are quoted in the chat, in the AI tools that actually give you credit. Many of them just steal it from you. But I think if you want to look to have that kind of expertise that's different, then people are still doing searches in applications looking for, locations like a restaurant near me or a veterinarian near me or something like that. Those searches have not been overcome by AI yet. Like the maps within Google and Apple are still very valid there. So just thinking about, if you're concerned about how things are evolving, search is probably one of the biggest factors that we're seeing right this second. There's going to be a million more as AI evolves, of course.
Right. I mean, you look at, we did this the other day, we were playing with it. And if you go to Google Maps now and you put in an emoji of a piece of fish or something like that, it will actually spit out like you're looking for fish, obviously, on this map, and it'll find it for you. So it's a completely different algorithm than what you're used to.
I feel like that's like my 9-year-old doing a search on his iPad or, voice to text or something like that. I always get strings of emojis from him. So for those that speak in emojis, you can also search an emoji if you didn't know.
Emojis. Yeah.
And for those who might have customers who might be searching with emojis, you might want to optimize for that, which is so crazy.
Create your own emoji. And that way, it'll go viral.
I love it. So we're coming up on time, and I want to wrap up with any other questions that people might have. So Tangela, do we have some more questions that are coming in?
We do. And I'm not sure if you can answer this in the absence of knowing the attendees' audience, but speaking back to the point of authenticity. So if you are a client or your team has access to limited media to put on their website, do you think the consumer response to that is animosity when it comes to using AI in lieu of real media? Do you think customers may see this and turn it away because it's not quote unquote real life?
It depends on what it is. And like you said, it depends on who your audience is and what it is that you're trying to convey. So AI, and I'm not exactly sure the question, but I'm assuming maybe it's like an AI generated image as opposed to taking real pictures. If it's that instead, there's kind of like a sniff factor nowadays. Like people are trying to pick out what's AI and what's not AI, which is kind of interesting. I do it all the time because I'm like, no, that's not real. But there's some fun in that. And so if it's going to be fun for somebody to decide if that's okay, then not. If people are not going to know really, like if people are not going to know that, this whatever imagery, this person that I stood in front of this bookshelf with all these different books on it, even though I didn't really have that space or place and I didn't really shoot that, is not real, but it still conveys the spirit of your business or your industry or whatever it is you're trying to do, then no, I don't think that that's normally a problem. Even if people do recognize that it's AI generated, sometimes people don't have the budget to, to do a photo shoot or to have that. I would challenge somebody, though, even from a photography perspective, pick up your iPhone. If you've got an iPhone, pick up your phone, whatever it might be, and experiment doing some shots, because people are used to seeing that nowadays. People don't have to have a professional photographer with, light kits and all of that to make things look good. So try to get some imagery in there. And if it's just impossible, like if it's one of those things that, my widget is made in some big factory and it's ugly and I'd never want to do that, then there's not really a problem with it. Just make sure that AI doesn't change it so much that it doesn't look real in some way, unless it's not supposed to look real. There's so many ifs and ifs, but it depends is like my theme throughout this entire thing. It depends is
on your audience. Yeah. Mainly on the audience, but absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is a reality to small business budgets and to the availability of photos sometimes. And so, if you look at probably the best thing I could compare it to is there are AI influencers now, and some people may know that they're fake, hopefully most people, but there are some people that may not realize that they're fake. Real influencers and creators still outperform AI influencers. But the AI influencers are completely under your control, are easier, to manage than outside world creators and influencers, and they still perform quite well. So I would say if you need to use it, by all means, use every tool available in your toolbox. But to Belinda's point, we really want to challenge, if there is any type of real photo or video that you could get, it's probably desirable. You can always start with a real photo that's not maybe great and feed that into AI and have it improve the photo. Like it can adjust the lighting, it can change the setting, it can do a whole lot now. So consider using some kind of real life basis for it, if at all possible. It may or may not be relevant to what you do.
Right. The other cool thing that I've seen on a lot of website research, like I was talking about pixelated real photos and things like that, like kind of a harken back to like old photography, but then it's pixelated so that it's modern, is you could play with it depending on your industry or depending on what you're actually selling, to where you've created this AI thing, but then go in and play with it, pixelate it a little, change the color, make it monochromatic or something so that it looks a little bit different and gives it kind of a creative edge to it. So it's AI, but then you've created kind of an art piece with it so that it's a little different.
I love it. Yeah. And we are seeing more of that creativity come back in. So I want to be sensitive to our time because we're right at 1:01 according to my clock. So I want to thank everybody for joining us here today. On our next episode, I'm going to be talking to Andrew Watson, who is our Director of Branding, and we'll be talking about rebranding and how to know when it's time to rebrand and what to consider. So we're going to be recording that live on Thursday, April 16th at noon Central US time. I don't have a page set up for that yet, so please follow us on Eventbrite and join our mailing list so that you don't miss it. So sorry, I don't have that set up quite yet. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have a link. If you check the chat, we have a link to a very brief survey. I would love it if you would give us some feedback on this program. And finally, we do not have permission to message you outside of Eventbrite unless you opt in to our mailing list. So the best way to stay in touch is to join our robot mailing list as opposed to Eventbrite. We can notify you of upcoming episodes, also give you access to articles and tools that are not available through Eventbrite. So you can find our email newsletter sign up box on the homepage of our website, and there's a link in the chat to our website. So if you love Eventbrite as a platform, you can follow us there for notifications about upcoming live episodes, and we'd love to have you join again. And finally, past episodes are available on YouTube. It takes us about a week or so to get those recordings live. So we will polish up this recording and send a link out, hopefully via Eventbrite. If not, you can always check out YouTube if you want to rewatch the whole thing. So there's also a link to my link tree in the chat if you want one link that can take you to all of these places, just because we'll be closing the window. So if you want to open the link tree, you can find all of this. Thank you, Belinda, so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tangela. And thank everyone, again, just for joining us for this live recording of the CMO Scoop. We'll see you the next time.
Bye. Ciao.